Gentlemen, praise God and welcome in. It is so good to be with you. This is the Matthew Dark Show. Now, remember, hit subscribe everywhere you get your shows. Never miss an episode. A fantastic guest with us here today, and I couldn't ask for a greater guest in such a moment in time. I do want to touch first on, as we get into the culture as it stands right now, there is a lurking issue in America, and it's this Epstein file issue, and it touches at the heart of maybe the most sinister, the most filthy, disgusting, unacceptable crime on the planet. And that's the abuse and the trafficking of children. There is no excuse for that crime ever. There is no moment of passion for that crime. It's unacceptable. And America's got a situation where we can really say, no more, it stops here. Or we're going to let this continue to go while children are traumatized and victimized. With really no end in sight. It's unacceptable. We have maybe the most fantastic guest to speak to these issues right now in the culture, Baz-Recovery. Now, the resume, the history, what you've done, this is truly God's work, what you're doing. The Association for the Recovery of Children, that's the organization, folks. We will get you linked up on their website. Most people have no idea that in America, each and every year, 400,000 children go missing. And where are these children going and who's after them, finding them? Our guest, Baz-Recovery, if you could just bring us up to speed, sir. It's so good to have you again. I thank you so much always for doing this. Just kind of give us a temperature check on the trafficking of children. I mean, are we making progress? Is this getting better? Is this getting worse? I mean, you're in the moment, lifetime. Bring us up to speed. Are we making any progress on this issue?
Yeah, Matthew, it's good to be here with you. Thank you. That's a great question. We are not winning the war on child sex trafficking in America. We are still the largest buyers of child sex and child sex pornography in the world. With that said, a lot of that was contributed, or a lot of that escalated, is what I should say, during the open border situation with the Biden administration, because now we have, probably after Tom Homan claimed has rescued 160,000 of the 500,000 UACs, we still have those alien children. And of course, prior to that, the numbers fluctuate, but let's say, just for the conversation, 400,000 American children that were missing before that as well. So I don't think enough is being done about it. However, with that said, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Most recently, as I'm monitoring things like Instagram every day and seeing that we're having arrests being made across America, which about a year ago was unheard of, or at least it wasn't publicized. So we're seeing pastors, we're seeing law enforcement, we're seeing doctors, we're seeing judges. So I think there are a lot of people in America that are actually on board and doing something about it within their communities. And that's where we really want it to start, in their communities. I don't think this is and I say this with all due respect to the president, I just don't think this has been and ever will be a priority for the federal government. Not because they don't care about children, but because there's just so much to tackle day to day. For example, let's look at the FBI. There's still corruption in the ranks. It's still a broken system. They've got homicides, terrorism, and drugs, and I mean, you name whatever DOJ's got to handle, they got that. And then you've got HSI, and it's got tons of other things it has to handle. And so every three-letter government agency is really overtasked, which is why for many, many years, after doing this for like 34 years now, I always wanted to recommend, and have recommended, that they take some NGO like ours, or someone equivalent to us, and just say, you know what, this is what you're going to do for the American people. This is the only thing you're going to do. You're just going to go rescue kids, which is what we do. But they haven't managed to the best of my knowledge, haven't managed to separate this issue from all the three-letter agencies or the government. And so it just stockpiles, to be honest with you, and nothing gets done. I heard you mention, and I don't want to steal your thunder on the Epstein files, But that's something we should probably talk about and try to address that for the American people as well.
Yeah, and I think this is the moment in time as a country, because you kind of described the government has so many things happening all the time that it's got its fat hands in. For whatever reason, the assault of a child has not made it like the national security risk that it is, the cultural security risk that it is. I don't understand a culture that can go around the world saying this is how you should live while we actively protect those assaulting children. Those two cannot exist in the same breath. But we have a big moment here with Pam Bondi. Now go back to her deposition, her testimony in Congress a month ago, maybe the most despicable piece of testimony we've ever heard by a confirmed official in our government. She made Merrick Garland and Alejandro Mayorkas look like, they had some substance to them. They asked about, what are you doing about this or that or the other? She says the Dow's at 50,000. She says what President Trump has done, or wanted to reference some illegal alien. And so what she did was despicable. She's of course now been fired, replaced by, somebody even scarier in Todd Blanche. And I think I think this is, and I don't mind attacking the president for this. He has not shown the credibility in this issue to warrant the benefit of the doubt. The reality is this: they are going to guard this Epstein list tighter than what for as long as they possibly can. Trump was on thin ice with the Epstein handling. We demanded that, and they betrayed that. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, Donald Trump, all these people that said, we hear you and we want kids safe too. They epically failed it and are now going to come across. Don't we have to have this issue, or maybe I say it better, if we were to tackle the Epstein issue head on, and we are coming after every single one of them, it is now a priority at the highest level. Is that going to have worldwide impact on the volume of child trafficking? I mean, isn't this the head of the snake when the United States says this is unacceptable, this will not happen on any time of ours? Does it send the world message? Don't we have to deal with this first? You tell us.
Yeah, I think anything and everything the United States does sends a message to the world. They look up to us as a beacon of light for freedom and justice and accountability. And so, if we don't handle it, we shame ourselves. But at the same time, there are other countries that are going to actually keep lighting the flame if we don't. It's kind of a mystery right now. And Matthew, I'm kind of sitting at the 14,000-foot level, even though I'm literally for 34 years been in the trenches of this, and I can tell you who the head of the snake is, and we could go that. Even the FBI knows most of this, and they're not acting on it. So I think the biggest issue in America now, what Americans actually want, believe it or not, in my professional opinion, better than the economy, better than gas prices, they want accountability. They want justice, and it is the one thing that we could see in America actually unite separate parties like Democrats, Republicans, libertarians, whatever, over the Epstein files, this issue of accountability. You could actually see if accountability, if there is no accountability, you could actually see historically in America an uprising, a civil war, not against people, not Americans against, not the public against the public, but you could actually see an uprising of people across the aisles going after the federal government, to be honest with you, and saying, you know what, we're tired of this. It is interesting. I think we have to take this into consideration. 47 is an amazing strategist. And he is smart enough not to show all his cards. And we've seen that historically. And I can't try to give an opinion or criticize without taking that into consideration, that maybe something's going on that we're not aware of. For example, when he said, look, it's a hoax, we should just get past it. My initial reaction was, sir, that's the worst thing you could ever say.
Correct.
Because no one's going to get past the abuse of children in America. And I sat on that for about 2 days and I thought, what if, and I don't know this to be the case, but I'm just saying, what if he wanted to have his enemies let their guard down? And he's got something coming that prior to the midterms that just ousts everybody that was on that Epstein list. Now, I don't know that it'd be the case, but I will tell you, if that were the truth and that were to happen, my gosh, people would want to reelect him for forever, to be honest with you, just based off his honesty, his credibility, and his actions. However, there are things that we do take a look at, like, and I don't know if this is true or not, when I heard him say to Pam Bondi, look, those are friends of mine, you know, and, if I had friends who were pedophiles, they wouldn't be my friends anymore, to be honest with you.
Right.
So I think and what's a big if that's the case, it puts 47, whether he did anything or not, for his friends, if there are friends on the list, it is a time of reckoning. It is a time where, are you going to do what you said you were going to do? America first, protect the people, or are you going to protect your friends? Now, I don't know him that well. I'm like a couple of people removed from him, but honestly, I don't have anything bad to say about him. I think it's kind of funny sometimes, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I think he's has almost fulfilled every promise he ran on, and so that there's a lot to be said for that. And in addition to that, without sounding like I'm defending him, because he's big enough, he can defend himself. Um, I wouldn't want his job. He probably gets 4 hours of sleep a night, and he has the weight of the world on his shoulders every single day. And we look to one person to make all the decisions, and then we expect them to all be right. And that's a really an impossible thing for anybody to do. So then he has people that obviously he's surrounded by, and some of those are good and some of those are bad. And we don't take into consideration that those influences may be things that cause him to go to the right or go to the left or say this or say that. So here's what I believe when it comes to that. When Pam Bondi said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, but I thought she said months ago, if we were to release all the names on the Epstein file, the federal government could collapse. Was
She
that?
said it. Yes, that is
She did,
correct.
didn't she? And so my reaction to that was, I had a couple of reactions. Number one, don't throw scare tactics at the American public, because basically what she was saying, or it could be interpreted this way, is like, oh my gosh, if we do this, what do you want? You want the government to stay up? You want your country alive? Or would you just like this, rather this just go away? You know, so that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it would be to reply to her and say, you know what? Then let the government fall, because that's a lie. It's not going to fall. There are plenty of people out here in America that will step up to the plate for every senator, every congressman, or every businessman that goes to jail for raping children. We know that for a fact. We're watching veterans step up the plate. We've got guys like Victor Marks here in Colorado that's stepping up to the plate. Joe Altman. We've even got Teague down there running for mayor.
Yep.
So we've got that all over the United States. And I think that it has to be. I will say this, and I think this is a fair assumption based on what we're seeing. The most important thing to most Americans right now, and I hear it all the time, is accountability for those who rape children that are on the Epstein files. Now, not everybody on the list is guilty of anything. I understand that. And I understand it takes some really deep investigation to make sure you don't assassinate someone's character and ruin their life just because they flew down to Epstein Island.
Yes.
But for those that are guilty, if heads don't roll before the midterms, we will lose the midterms.
That's right.
We will lose, not because the Democrats, if we're a Republican, not because the Democrats are that much more powerful, because the Republicans will be so dissatisfied that they will say, fine, you lied to us. And guess what? You want to be that way? You want to see this? Then guess what? Everything about America First was a lie. Everything about protecting the people is a lie. Everything about protecting our children is a lie. And you are no different than anybody else. And guess what? The Republican Party will lose. They will
I think
lose.
you're 100% right. I think there is so much well said in there. I want to give full disclosure. I'm a 3-time Trump voter. I wouldn't take that vote back one time in any circumstance, even knowing what we know now, knowing that that is not the same man that came down the escalator in 2015. And if you remember back then, the messaging was drain the swamp. And so
Right.
we didn't get a drain. We got a new swamp. And this one is actually worse in the sense that it came to us as a wolf in sheep's clothing. And now we're really having to process as Americans, okay, I think we've been betrayed here. Something has gone terribly wrong from the mandate to where we are right now. Trump took an incredible risk with his presidency by and giving him the benefit of the doubt by playing these games. And I think to give him the benefit of the doubt, now after Iran, I think is really hard. I think when you roll Pam Bondi up there in front of Congress, and don't she was coached, she was instructed. There's no doubt about that. You would never speak like that unless you were coached on those responses. And he allowed her to behave like that and continue this dragging on of we could put Lex Wexner in jail today. We know we have enough at least to start the criminal investigations. This is, of course, the Victoria's Secret billionaire who had given Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney. He's never been interviewed by the FBI. And he just got deposed for the first time last week. The government has chosen to kick this down the curb. And this was the moment in the time, American people. And I liked what you said earlier. I thought at the end of the day, and remember, only about 10% of these Democrats are into this disgusting, filthy, transvestite behavior where we're doing drag queen story hour in schools, where we're doing the men in the restrooms with little children. That's still a small minority of Democrats that are into this. And I think if you asked your average Democrat voter, does the thought of a child being locked in a closet, abused 10 times a day, fed 5 times a week, does that make you sick to your stomach? And do you want justice for it? Even most Democrats are going to say, absolutely, that's a red line for me. And so I thought it was, and maybe we are coming to that moment because there is now going to be an additional delay in getting this testimony. Excuse us, why are you redacting files that the law says you cannot redact in this case? This was a bipartisan, only one member of Congress did not sign on to the Transparency Act. Of course, Clay Higgins in Louisiana, for whatever reason, said, no, we shouldn't be looking into this. And the president signed it because it was veto proof. He had no choice, and he'd look like a fool not signing something with that kind of consent. But he played a risky game for us going into these midterms. I mean, you have to understand, as demonic as Democrats are, they stay locked in. As long as it's hate Trump, they're on it. They're in it. They're not going to budge. What Trump did, because I was one of the 3 issues that I needed addressed. I needed the border closed. I needed Epstein justice. And then we needed some kind of movement in the COVID atrocities. We had to have some kind of accountability there too. We're not doing any. The border is closed. And I want to give full credit to the Trump White House. They have closed that border. Joe Biden allowed 20 million people to come over here on a red carpet. It's one of the most shameful things. And we may not even recover ever. I mean, the country is different permanently because of those 4 years and that stolen election. So I think it's terrible. But Trump put us in a really bad position because it's razor thin in the House. And you know, the moment these Democrats get control, impeachment is coming. And you'll say, but what did he do? Well, what did he do the first time? And they did 2 impeachments, and it will stop the progress. It will stop everything. It's going to halt it. How can he be taking us down such a risky road on something that looked like it was on a tee, meaning 6 million pages of Epstein files? It should be something that everybody has an appetite for. I mean, again, small percentage of America is going to say, yes, abusing children is fine by me. It's a very small percentage of the country. Everybody else says, yeah, let's see it. I mean, if this guy's a billionaire and he's not going to jail for these kind of crimes, I think America's got a problem. And he chose to do it in such a bizarre way that puts the country at risk, because with Democrats back in control, you do have BLM type movements. You do have transvestite movements. You do have this creep and infringement of their freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom to own a gun. Why play this game, though, when the country is this tight? He needed every one of those votes every time he's run. And he put us in a position, again, there's no winning by hiding the Epstein files. You can't win on that one. There's no winning by going to war in Iran. So you can only maybe limit damage. Why did he do such risky behavior at such a critical time for the country? Because 2 years under this kind of, that's not enough. We needed 4 years plus 4 years to really turn the ship. And now we may just get 2. Why did he do it so risky?
Yeah, one of the things is, I don't think the president. I don't even know if the president has a kitchen cabinet. to be honest with you. And he needs one. And I could give him like 8 of the best people on that, because here's what's happening under Trump. He is still the same thing that happened to him with him when he was 45, that Mike Flynn tried to tell him about. You're surrounded by bad players. You're surrounded by deep state. He is still surrounded by deep state. And I will tell you this, not only myself, but there are a number of us that come out of the intel community to know exactly who those people are. And that information we've tried to get that up to 47. And there are gatekeepers that are deep state players that still have conversations with John Brennan and Obama and Clapper and Burns and all the deep state players and Klaus Schwab and Soros. I mean, they still that, and they've surrounded the president. Now, the question is, does the president know? Well, if he watches your show, he'll know from here on out.
Yeah.
But there are certain people that are gatekeepers that are not being honest with him. We know that for a fact. Okay. And the American people need to know that. So the president you have to, in that position, in that office, you have to build out people that you trust. And so I believe he thinks there are people that he should trust. For example, and this is based on evidence. I don't trust Susie Wiles, and
Nope.
she's the chief of staff. And but here's the thing about President Trump. If you're loyal to Trump, he's not going to throw you out in the dark, so to speak. For example, Pam Bondi's going to get a cushy job of some sort.
Yeah.
Kristi Noem got a good job, and I think that's okay. You reward people for their service, and that may be what we're seeing now. Also, Matthew, maybe the word is getting to 47, and we're starting to see him clean house, and he maybe is paying attention, and we're probably going to see more people get fired, maybe. These things don't happen overnight. We realize that, particularly with the load that he carries and the decisions he's making on multiple fronts, whether it's Iran or here in the country or whatever. Trump is he loves to support the states. I think that's a great thing. He lets governors do what they're supposed to do in their state until they do stuff that's stupid. And he has to sign an executive order like, on voting, which I think was brilliant to do, to be honest with you. Because there was so much fraud. So I don't think, and this is just me speaking, I'm not there. I don't sit in the president's office. I don't drink coffee with him. I'd like to a couple of times. I've been close to him before, but some things may not be intentional. They may be on the advice of other people. For example, you saw Joe Kirk leave his position in counterterrorism because he couldn't agree with what was going on in Iran. But Joe also made a statement, and he said, look, Iran's not a threat, an imminent threat. And I've only met Joe once, but I will tell you, Iran is an imminent threat. And they have been. If we took it years and years and years when Iran was supported by Obama and Clinton, they actually fostered their nuclear program. And here we've got a nation that sponsors terrorism, that has killed Americans, killed people all over the world for years, and has literally stood in front of the camera and said, we will destroy America. I mean, they've made it known. So when do you draw the line and say, okay, we believe you? Because I'm going to tell you something, the Persians, they generally keep their word. And so do the Arabs. You may not think they move at your time schedule, but they and the Chinese do. So when I look at all these decisions, for example, this one, just to segue a little bit on Iran, could it be that President Trump realizes that he needs to extinguish all the threats against America before he's out of office because he doesn't believe any other president will follow in his footsteps? That could very well be true. Venezuela was a threat. I worked it. Was Iran? I worked Iran. They have always been a threat on multiple levels. Have the Taliban? Yeah. But who's going to account for the 28 Taliban that came across the border within the last 6 months that we reported on and they can't find? Right. Or the 18,000 terrorists that are in the nation because of the open border policy. So if we look at the potential of disaster within our own country, it could very well be. And again, I'm not Pete over at Department of War. I think he's doing a great job. But it could be that the president and certain people realize that trouble's coming here in America. And we've got to be able, we can't fight on two fronts. And so we've got to clean up the threats on the outside first, because when it explodes here in America, and it is going to explode, we're going to see terrorist hits in America. Not a prediction because I am a former counterterrorism officer. It's a prediction based on the intel that we've received. HSI has it, Tulsi knows it, the president knows it. A lot of Americans don't realize it because they're all comfortable right now. But when it happens here in America, it will make 9/11 look like child's play, to be honest with you. Which, by the way, on 9/11, I don't think that was outside, to be honest with you. And we can get in that discussion later. That was an
Yeah.
inside job.
Okay, so this is all the things that people need to understand, though, because see, there's twofold going on. Is um, the United States loves a boogeyman, and we've used variety of players throughout the years. We've talked about Russia being the boogeyman. You must fear Russia, even though they're far more a Christian nation than we are. And go look at their subways, their streets. You don't see it with zombie drug addicts and pushing people into the subway. So again, totally different issue, but we've selected boogeymen throughout the years. Saddam Hussein, who was once a friend, we turned into villain. Osama bin Laden, who was an asset, we then turned into the villain. So I think the message there is don't befriend U.S. intelligence as an Arab person, because you will most likely have that script flipped upon you. Two things on Iran. What Marco Rubio said right after the attack is he said, well, we had good intelligence that said Israel was going to be attacking Iran, prompting an Iran response to allies in the region, bases in the region. And so we did a preemptive on this. And I think that's kind of where we've been. Okay, well, which one was it? Imminent nuclear threat, because that was supposedly supposed to be squashed back in June or July with the Midnight Hammer. Okay, he said, we've obliterated it. They're toast. They're done. Then we find out the 28th that they've got intelligence. Israel's imminently attacking, and they are also looking. We know we're going to have a response from Iran, so we did what we did to eliminate. And you could say that makes sense. I guess that's where people though are confused. Is, well, was my life really at risk as an American in the Midwest or wherever from Iran, or was this because there was going to be this Israeli attack, and we just are sort of always obligated to be a part of those kind of actions? Don't they have to, because doesn't one feel like it's a lie and one is the truth? Or are those both true, you think?
Yeah, let me say this before I make this comment.
Yes.
Uh, in the intelligence service, uh, especially coming out of the agency, Israel's intelligence service is considered to be hostile to us. Okay, they may be allies, but every other intelligence service outside of the CIA or DIA is generally considered potentially hostile. So do they steal from us? Yes, they do. Have they? Yes, they have. So, and the Chinese have, and
Yes.
other intelligence, or agencies from around the world have. Have we stolen from them? Yes, we have too. It's the world of espionage, so to
Right.
speak. So I don't think you can outline or blueprint your friendship or your alliance based on that. Um, it doesn't mean that people in their government are honest or dishonest. You just have to figure that out. But
Right.
to answer your question, I don't, I don't, I wasn't in the room with Rubio and the president and Netanyahu and those, so I can't speak to that. I think a lot of us speculate. All I can speak to is the fact that what I learned over the last 40 years or so, and particularly the last 20 years, is that Iran had the capability and wanted more capability, and definitely was hell bent on attacking the United States one way or another. I mean, they have cells in the United States now.
Sure.
So whether it's Iran, whether it's Algeria, whether it's England, whether it is, you have to deal with the threat. Sooner or later, you're going to have to. Now, if we fast forward, and you can never satisfy every American here, but the president and Pete Hegseth, They have an obligation, a national security obligation to protect the country now and in the future. And sometimes you take measures now that are going to protect generations in the future. Um, because I know how much of a threat they were, and because they're always talking about they're going to kill us and we're the great Satan, it's like, when do I wake up and smell the coffee and go, okay, great. You're going to do this sooner or later. Maybe not on my watch, but maybe on somebody else's watch. And my grandchildren are going to be the ones suffering under a nuclear attack because I didn't take care of business when I could have taken care of business. So I think, in all fairness, when it comes to national security, we have to look at those issues. But with that said, as I mentioned earlier, you've got an entire host of people in America on the Hill and in Washington that have their own agendas. I mean, 100 different agendas, whether it's about money, whether it's about war. You got banks. Look, nobody
Right.
can go to war without being backed by a bank, okay? And banks historically have started wars. We know that. So that's a question that has to be answered. Okay, who's involved and why? And what do they want for it? And what are they going to get out of it? So um, I think, that when the president, said, look, we're not going to have any foreign wars. And I understand that. It's a tough promise to make because you may be obligated if someone attacks you. Now, the next thing you know, you didn't start the war.
Right.
They started it. And so the reason I mention that is, from a real strategist standpoint, who started this conflict in Iran? We did not. They did. And I'm not defending Israel. Look, Israel's big boys. They can do their own thing, okay? But from a U.S. standpoint, had they never said, we will destroy America, I think we probably would have left them alone, to be honest with you.
True.
And then we look at things like, what hand does the CIA have in all of this? Let me tell you what, the CIA is not the CIA that I was part of. It has changed. When Obama and Brennan and those guys took place, they put their people 7 levels deep in that organization. It is still full of corruption. It is still full of the Biden administration wokeism. It is still full of inept officers that couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag when it comes to doing spy work, to be honest with you. I know that for a fact. I come from a long lineage of Cold Warriors where we were up against the KGB, and then I monitor what goes on in the agency as well. And with people that are still friends and stuff like this, and they will tell you the same identical thing. It is not the agency that it used to be, nor, in my professional opinion, can it be trusted, because I also know that within the CIA itself, and I can't speak to NSA, but I can speak to the CIA, they have already made dirty deals with people that are on the terrorist payroll. I know that for a fact. And that information has been addressed, going up to Tulsi and JD, and they know. Now, what they choose to do with that, that's up to them. They're the ones we voted in, into seats of authority. And so we let it play out on the national security issue until all of a sudden they're not doing their job. And then I think that the people we hold accountable are not just the bad guys who rape kids, but I think we hold the people that don't bring accountability. I think we hold them accountable as well. So, for example, recently, let's say, I can't remember the case now. It was just brought to me 2 days ago. The judge that let the predator out that killed the 5-year-old. What state was that in? Was that in Florida? I don't even remember. But anyway, somebody asked me what they should do with the judge. The judge should go to prison for murder.
Absolutely.
They were complicit in the crime.
Absolutely.
So our laws have got to change. So I think if we want, and I'm coming full circle here when it comes to protecting kids, if we want to protect our kids in America, President Trump has just got to do one thing: make the death penalty federal law. You rape a child, anyone under 18, not under 12, under 18. Okay. Or if you're an adult and you're 16 in your state, then it's under 16, all right? Whatever that should be. Then all of a sudden, predators will start thinking twice before they commit these crimes. It's a deterrent, and it's a good deterrent. Right now, there's nothing in place for that. There are people playing at it, like the governor of Alabama. They got the law passed there. Utah but it's still, if you rape a child 12 years and below. Well, Matthew, what about 13 to 18?
Exactly.
What about those kids?
Exactly.
Why did they not? Why? What? And it's all part of this is part of the UN's push, which has been for years, to lower the age of consent to 12 years old. They've been pushing hard. So after a while, if you mimic that enough in society, everybody goes, "Oh, children are 12." Well, if you're a parent, you know that your 14-year-old is pretty much still a kid.
Yep.
Okay, still a
Absolutely.
child. So, but now we can prostitute them as what? What are they? They're in between. Are they adults
Right.
if they're not children? I
Right.
don't know what the in between really is. I thought we just went from
Good point.
children to being adults.
Yeah.
And so they'll do what? They'll create something in between, like we consider these to be mid-adults or something. I don't know. They'll come up with some
Pre-adults.
pre-adults. Yes, they'll come up with something wacky. Then they'll have to create another law for pre-adults. Okay.
That's right.
Oh, well, if you rape a pre-adult, well, you just get 5 years in prison, but what they're not paying, and the people that are making these laws, they're compromising in their own Senate, in their own House. That's what they're doing. And that's what they do. They compromise to try to find something. Stop compromising. Just draw the line in the sand and be the governor in the state that says, guess what? No kid's going to be harmed on my watch in my state. If you're under 18 and you rape a child or you groom a child, you're going to get the death penalty. We're going to put a short rope around your neck and tie it to a tall tree. And then we start seeing things happen. But I will say this, and I'll be quiet. We know this for a fact too, because we get to go behind the veil and see who's involved in all kinds of stuff. The same stuff that the FBI can see, and they're not doing anything about it. I can tell you that right now. They're not arresting enough people, and they could. Now, it could be that they just don't have enough people in the Bureau, but I know that for a fact. They're just not doing enough right now. They're just not doing enough.
I think that's the sickness, though, and that's the disappointment and also the discouragement of this country moving forward. Is that should be such a unifying topic to say, yeah, listen, we're going to disagree on sport teams and the gay stuff and all that, but we all agree. You touch a child, you should die. Okay. The fact that that's not in enough hearts, even conservative Christian, patriot MAGA, this is not the top of their list agenda. And it has to be. It has to be, because these same government officials that would have no problem, and we know these are government people, big business people, all people that we're giving our money to, just so we're clear, the person that would do something like that to a child that is in a position of authority, he's also hurting and harming and doing other terrible things. That kind of ideology has to come out entirely, because there's no way you could be a MAGA, America first, America only, and then also say, but I do this to kids on the side. Those things don't come in. So you're a monster and the whole thing must be. And so that's what I guess we're so discouraged about, is it's like, oh, shucks, we just another crazy, chaotic war or event. We just can't get to these darn child perpetrators. But one of these days, folks, and I think people are so sick of that. I think the people that were really the heart and soul of the Make America Great, the first Trump, that person was genuine, an original Trumper. He got it. We got to close the border. We got to get this gay stuff out. We got to go back to America first. We got to start right now. This is crazy. And Trump spoke to all of that. And boy, it was a movement like we've never seen in rock star. He's the most famous person in the world, maybe go down as the famous in history kind of guy. Just the reality of it. And so we had this burning desire to see accountability, and you led the show off with accountability. And I think people at the end of the day, they do want to see, they want mercy for themselves, but they certainly want justice for others. And I think we can unify. There is no shame, all unifying against the rounding up and exterminating of child predators. I think that's an easy topic. And the fact that they've made it so hard, so bumbling, so stumbling, so confusing, so manipulative. Kash Patel has lied to us. Pam Bondi has lied to us. And President Trump, you were different. You wouldn't lie to us. And now you've got these people. Howard Lutnick is a disgusting pervert that we can draw all those lines right back to him being on the island, describing the age of his children, lying about his friendships with Jeffrey Epstein. And he is a close advisor to President Trump. The MAGA guy, the original MAGA guy, sees that and says, this doesn't feel right. That guy is not what we were going for in 2015, 2016 when we were taking down Hillary. So I think Trump's first order of business, get out of Iran, even though we can't, because even if we take what you're saying is true, it was a threat going to, he's not going to get the credit for that safety mechanism right now in the moment. We couldn't really feel that. I was never losing sleep at night thinking Iran, this could be the day, right? So it's hard for me to really absorb that benefit yet, but I'll be grateful down the road. Let's say it like that. But the Epstein files were sitting on Pam Bondi's desk. She said they're waiting for review, and then we bumbled and stumbled through that. What's one way you think now for the next, what do we got, 6 months here, for how can Trump get his base back in good favors? What does he need to do? Because economically, we're still suffocating in inflation. We've got money being spent every day on a war. And even if it's just, it increases our cost of living. We know that wars are very expensive for the American people. How does Trump get that original MAGA guy back in his good graces?
Wow, that's a good question, Matthew. Um, yeah, when it comes to the threat in Iran, people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why we have people in jobs in the intel community and like the Department of War that monitor that stuff. And this is why we have terrorist acts stopped every day by HSI and other people that we don't ever talk about, stuff like that.
Exactly.
So there's somebody that's doing stuff. So that's good. But for Trump, I think he just needs to do one thing, to be honest with you. I mean, he's probably laughing at me now if he listens to the show. Um, but if he wanted to get back in the good graces of America, the biggest thing he could do would be go after the people on the Epstein list
There you go.
and watch them show up in front
We're
of
back.
court just like
Yep.
that. I mean, let me tell you what, it would seal him. I mean, it would make all the wrongs right. Because here's what's interesting, and you touched on this about unifying America. Um, what happens with parties, whether it's Republican or Democrat or whoever, is they try to make the child sex trafficking issue political. It's
Right.
not a political issue.
That's right.
It's crimes against children. So let's make that really clear right now. This is not a political issue. These are crimes against the children. And then let's make this very clear also. Unless you protect the children and the generations that are being coming up in America, you will have no future republic.
Right.
This this
Right.
this is this is this is like Islam 101, okay? I learned this, like outbreed them, okay? We want Sharia law. What we will do is we will outbreed them and we will take over every political position and we will not assimilate and Islam will rule America, okay?
Yeah.
They're serious about that, okay? This is why we had the Crusades back in 1160, okay? Unknown to a lot of people because they don't study their history, you know, we didn't attack the Muslims. The Muslims attacked Europe
Right.
and we took it back to Jerusalem to keep it out of Europe. Okay. Well, guess what? We didn't attack Muslims. Muslims in America attacking the Constitution. They're attacking Christians. They're attacking Jews. They're attacking anybody they can attack so they can do what they've been trained to do, which is create a holy war. Okay. So, so I think that if our republic is going to remain as our founding fathers set it up to be, you have to protect your children. You have to protect future generations on many levels, whether that's education, teaching them, history. And by the way, 47 did a good job. I think, did he not close down the Department of Education? He did. It was a great first step. And he put it back in the States and said, guess what? Do your job. Okay. Salute the flag, teach you can have prayer in school. You can do whatever you want to do. So I think that was a good step in the right direction as well. Um, but ultimately, if President Trump came out, and I'd write the speech for him, I'll tell you, if 47 would come out and say, you know what? The most important thing here in our country right now, outside of all these other things that I have to deal with, are the future of our children, your grandchildren, and they need to be protected. And I think it would turn around. I got a call from some friends in DC. They said, "Hey, there's a anti-trafficking position opening up at the State Department under Rubio, and we want you to take it." And I thought, wow, well, how would this help me save children? And I thought that through and thought, what would my conversation look like in front of Rubio and the president? And I said, you know what? It would be this. Gentlemen, let us set the example in America first. Before we start trying to tell everybody else how to handle their anti-trafficking problems in the world, let us be the example. And then I would go down my list of 15 things of like how we get the nation back into being that example. But another thing, Matthew, it intentionally, to some degree, is not a priority, and here's why.
Yeah.
When you look at the files, some of the files we have, and some of the files that the FBI has and HSI has and other people have, when it comes to corruption and child abuse, a lot of people that are in positions of authority now don't want you to act on that because guess what? They may go to prison.
That's right.
Hillary Clinton will go to prison.
Yes.
We have, Bill Clinton will go to prison. Bankers will go to prison. I mean, there are people, influencers that are all tied into each other
Right.
and are friends of a lot of people that are on the Hill right now, and they will go to prison, and they know that. So when I hear somebody make a statement like, I don't think we should really look into it, I ask why.
Yeah.
Why? Because one thing America also demands from its leaders who work for us, by the way, and I think the American people need to remember we the people and never forget their strength and their power in that. We demand transparency. Now, there are some things we don't tell people because it'll get leaked and it could affect national security. We get that. But I'm going to tell you something. From what I know and the files I've seen, the Epstein files we've seen, it's not going to be a national security issue.
No.
To a great degree. No. So don't throw that at us and go, and the government's not going to fall. So don't try to scare us with that as well. Just do your job. Just do your job.
And let's just be clear. If this system to stay intact requires the abuse of children, burn it down now. Let it fall. It is over.
That's right.
No system that is dependent on something like that deserves to exist a day longer. And I think that's what they missed. The sentiment from the American people was, no, it's not working for us. It's not working for so many. We want it to burn down and start over with us as the priority. And it feels like we got off track with that. But I'm going to still remain prayerful and hopeful that good thinking returns and that kind of passion to ignite America. I mean, Trump almost going on another little campaign rally here to go back to that MAGA voter and say, no, we still got life and I got fight for you, even though I was distracted and doing some crazy stuff. And just let us know he's back on track for the American first. And honestly, for the next little while, it needs to be America only. We got to have horse blinders on. We can only see the mess that we've created in our own country. We've got 2 million children in poverty. We've got trafficked children. We've got urban decay. We've got violence in our inner city that is just unspeakable to think that it's in the wealthiest, richest, greatest nation in the world. We have to address what we've done here domestically before we even earn the right to spend money, give advice, and put bodies, all of it. I just don't understand that thinking, but I do understand the money machine that's involved with the dabbling all over the world.
Yeah.
I want to go to ARC, the Association, the Recovery of Children. Let people understand just kind of the mission behind it, how to get engaged. I mean, you're spending $5 a month at Starbucks. Here, check it out. Check out this cause so how can people get involved? But give them a little taste of what the mission and everything going on at ARC is.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Well, ARC is as you know, is a 501c3 nonprofit of former intelligence, military, and law enforcement officers who have been dedicated to the recovery of missing, exploited, and sex trafficked American children since 1993. So we're the longest running child anti-trafficking rescue organization, I think, in the United States right now. Outside of probably the Salvation Army was probably doing it years ago as well. And we're grateful for that. But we do this with no paycheck in our pocket. It's an all volunteer service. And what we came to realize about 6 years ago was that we needed to start force multiplying without increasing our ranks. And so we put together the Fight Child Trafficking Equipping course, which is a 6-day course, pretty intense, on how do you get out in the field. It's not awareness, but how do you actually understand the criminal enterprise and what's going on with trafficking better than most law enforcement, to be honest with you, because now law enforcement are starting to send their people to us. And it's because we've been in the trenches for so long. This is our swim lane, and we know it probably better than anybody that I can think of right now. Um, so what we try to do is we try to encourage people to go to recoveryofchildren.com and look at the dates where we put these courses on. We only can afford to do 6 of them in a year because we're running operations. Like I just got off the Texas border, and just a quick comment on that, it's still not closed up, just to let you know. I
Oh,
know
thank you.
Trump has done a great job. They're building as fast as they can, but it's very porous still. The cartel is still running kids and drugs and stuff, terrorism and weapons, and it's still coming through. And there's still people on the cartel payroll on the border, whether that's corrupt law enforcement or neighborhoods or whatever it may be. So I'm speaking from being there 3 weeks ago.
Thank you.
It's it's still open. So the potential for danger is still there. But I mean, it's not that they're not building. They are.
Yeah.
Just, you just can't build fast enough,
Totally fair.
So
And if they hadn't delayed it and stopped it, it'd be done by now. But yeah, go ahead.
they would. And I think people like uh, Pete Hegseth, he's actually got a plan of attack in place really here soon, to where they're going to be deploying military troops down on the border, which they should be. I'm
Yes.
actually speaking at the Department of War on the 30th of July to, I hope he's still going, he's speaking, and I hope he'll remain in the room, and a number of military leaders on how important it is for us to have them on the border to curtail this child sex trafficking issue in our country. Because those are what we call external interferences, and that's part of their duty. Most people don't know that, but the military is to address external interferences that could actually hurt its citizens. So, with
Yeah.
that
So
in
instead of
mind,
Japan and Germany with 100,000 troops, you're going to work right here. Yeah. Fair enough. Go.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So, I
You're
kind of
down at the
segued
border.
there, buddy, and
Yeah,
I got off
you were
track
down
there.
at the border. It was still porous, so you're coming back firsthand. But basically, at these courses, teaching the
Yeah.
people the criminal enterprise behind this monster.
Yeah, so that you can actually build out your own NGO, non-government organization, and actually put your teams together
Wow.
and go do what we're doing. And it's working great. We just had this
Wow.
week 2 rescues, a 12-year-old and I believe a 14-year-old, and those rescues were done by alumni from those courses. And then the
Wow.
month before that. So we know it's working, and we sometimes will coach them through some of the things, but it is an effective way of getting more of the community involved. We still don't have enough of America. There are still people that, when I mention child sex trafficking, they don't even realize that it happens here in America.
Right.
They think it's happening over there somewhere. And then there are some people that, ironically enough, will go, "What are you talking about, child sex? What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
You know, so um, yeah, it's a bigger issue for me than overthrowing small governments. And I got to tell you something, Matthew. I loved being a spy.
Yeah.
I loved the world of espionage, and I loved my days at the agency when it was a good place. I mean, it was a boy's dream come true.
Right.
To be sent someplace and go, "You may not come back." It's like, "Okay, I'm going." And you squeeze under the wire and you make it back,
Right.
and all by the grace of God, of
That's
course,
the
not
movies.
not
Yeah.
not by the fact that we're really that good at what we do. I don't think.
Right.
Um, we apply a little tradecraft, and God gives you 1,000 angels to go with a little bit. So, um, but with that said, it has become a priority for me. Um, I think that once you rescue one child in your life, your whole life changes, and you
Wow.
realize all of a sudden what's important. I don't think that's any different than a good parent, and there's a difference between a good parent and a bad parent,
Yeah.
but I don't think there's any good parent that when they have their firstborn, their whole life changes.
Right.
It's like, wow, my job is to protect this young soul until they become an adult and they become a good citizen for the country. And so that happened, even though I never had any kids of my own. Um, Now I have thousands, I guess,
Yeah.
you know, that we rescue. But this is what we do, and we encourage people to come join us. If this is a fight you want to get into, it definitely has to be a calling. It's not just a cool thing to do. Trafficking doesn't stop on Saturdays and Sundays and holidays. It is all consuming. And I mean all consuming. You know, if I'm able to get a good workout in and some sleep and some food, I consider that to be a really good day in between all those operations. But when you get called to something by God,
Yeah.
your heart is in it to such a point you can't not do it because God won't let you rest.
That's right.
You not rest. You cannot turn your back on something like this. No different than any soldier in the field, any warfighter that can't turn his back on his buddies. You know, he shouldn't be able to, rather. So, yeah, we want to encourage people to go to recoveryourchildren.com, check out the courses, come join us. It's not very expensive. It's 650 for 6 days. It's like $100 a day,
Sure.
you know, and what you walk away with is not only an experience, but you walk away with the ability to know more about this AO, this area of operation, than, be very honest with you, most people in Washington, D.C. This is why we're people in Washington that are put in positions that are supposed to address this issue are falling all over their swords.
Yeah.
They're people going to these positions and no one's been in the field. And it's mind-boggling to me. Why would you put a general in charge of an army that had not been to war himself?
Right.
You know, and that's what we have in Washington.
Right.
You know, I was just on the phone with some buddies in HSI, and they were talking about how really messed up it still is up there. People want their job, but they don't want to do their job. And the reason they don't want to do their job is because guess what? They don't know how to do their job. They get this position and they pontificate and they go, look at this on my resume, but they're not really in it for for the good of the children. I'll give you a quick example of this if we have a little bit of time.
Oh, sure.
Um, uh, Last year, there was a grant being awarded for somebody to take over the human trafficking hotline. Okay, so that victims and survivors could call in and go, help, here I am, please come help me, right? And there were about three or four organizations out there, and one particular that was more qualified, I personally know, to do the job. Now, the contract went to a company called Compass Connections. Compass Connections was the company that was in charge of the UAC hotline that failed miserably. It fell on its face. It was so ineffective. And yet they got awarded another contract. Okay. And guess what? As of yesterday, because we've been watching them, they're failing miserably again. So here's the thing. It's not the fact that the company is inept, but the fact is victims are dying on the streets because you can't do your job. I told them when we were pushing for that initially, that contract should have gone to an organization called the Safe House Project that's run by Christy Wells, and it would be done properly. But this is the problem in Washington. People put their friends in positions and offices rather than people who are qualified. And one of the things 47 tried to get rid of was all that DEI crap.
Yes.
Or that favoritism. And remember what he said? We're going to hire you on merit. Well, in this case, Compass Connections, I don't even know what they're doing there, to be honest with you, but they are failing miserably because I'm getting the reports back because I'm in the trenches and I know this is what's happening.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of buffoonery. That's a good word. I haven't used that one in a long time. The
Great
type
word
of
for them.
yeah, buffoonery that we have in many offices that are in Washington. And so when we see the job's not being done, it's not that far. It's not that far. You don't have to look that far. Just look at the people that were put in charge to do the job. So this is full circle to all those people I was talking to you about that are surrounded, the president's surrounded by.
Yeah.
When we see something not happening, it's because they're not doing their job. If we slice back to Bonnie, remember President Trump said, "What did you do with the Comey thing?" You know,
Right. Right.
how did we drop the ball on the Comey thing?
Right.
I mean, I look at that over and over and over, and I think, wait a minute, they're supposed to be really smart. Why would they put a prosecutor up there that was going to get booted.
Right. Right.
But they did
Exactly.
it. So that was that.
So
You know,
you
I'll tell
never
you
really
what,
wanted to go all the way. You wanted that to happen.
exactly. You wanted to happen. So it looks like it's by design.
That's right.
And you saw Trump tweeted, he was pretty pissed off about it.
Yeah.
So I think that what we're seeing, we could be seeing, I really hope and pray that God is helping us with this, because I hope that that buffoonery is actually in front of the president's face now, and he's starting to see people that aren't being able to do their job. They talk a great job, but he's probably maybe is just saying, you know what? And a little bit could be because he's got ego too. We know that.
Yeah.
He could be going, you're making me look bad, you
Right.
know. But
That's right.
I think ultimately, instead of making me look bad, I think knowing the piece of his heart that I've been able to see into, he probably is honestly saying, this is not good for the nation. This is not good for the nation. So guess what? You're fired.
That's right.
And you can thank Mark Burnett for that. You know,
That's right.
remember he was on Mark Burnett's show,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The Apprentice, and
Uh-huh.
you're fired. And I kept
Right.
thinking, you know, if this guy ever becomes the president, this is going to be his thing. You're fired.
This
And
is
he'll go
it.
back to it. Well, guess what? He just did it. You're fired. You know,
Hey,
so
that line put him on a whole nother level of fame. There's no doubt about that. And it's just such a great, and here it is, Good Friday. And I think the beautiful thing that maybe God is doing, and I hope he's doing this in the hearts of Americans, and it is going to take vocal, bold, brave Christians to speak of it. But, you know, so many men go through great men of the Bible, Moses, King David, Solomon, they all at some point or at the end very much disappointed God and were either banished or disjudged in some way. And it just shows putting reliance in man, who is so susceptible and absolutely will fall short. You know, to even suggest that that should have been hoisted upon Donald Trump, that so many Christians, so many Americans, so many MAGA people, they look to, it's over. He saved the country. I got my foot off the brake, and we've kind of in this slow creep of accepting the disappointment. But it highlights how man will disappoint, man will fall short, but Jesus Christ never will. And so you start there with, who do you depend on? Who do you put all reliance and faith and hope and all the things that he offers that man simply cannot? That shift in the heart where we take it from man to the Lord, to the Holy Spirit, I hope begins to say, you know what? We do still expect accountability. Even as much as we love you, Donald Trump, we're going to still make you accountable for this, that, and the other. And we don't want to, as Americans, get caught up in that same, well, because we love him, we're going to let this one slide and let this one slide. And I think he would respond to us because this is a huge body. It's a lot of folks. He built up an enormous coalition. When in unison, because the heart is centered around Jesus Christ, that's going to come very directly to President Trump. And I think he would respond. He doesn't want anything to do with pedophilia. He is caught up in a pretty nasty web. I mean, I cannot in good faith say, yes, I think he was a perpetrator on the island. It's just he was so interconnected and woven, and he knows it's going to take this. And it doesn't matter. He's still picking man over principle. And we've got to get back to that accountability. So, I mean, this is just such a wonderful weekend. Of course, Easter Sunday comes upon us. So this is always a time where you get that friend or family who's not going to church, get them to church with you. It's a wonderful time to take the Lord Jesus Christ into your heart. Because remember, on this day, Good Friday, he goes to the cross and he suffers on our behalf to defeat sin only 3 days later when they go to the tomb and he is no longer there. So it's just an exciting time to be a Christian, but get more Christians engaged. I think wake them up via the Holy Spirit, not you're dumb, I'm smart. We've got to connect there because we've got to wake up the hearts. Child sex trafficking should move every heart. And if our hearts are awake, we're going to receive that. If we're dead, and I think we have so many dead hearts, just dead, selfish, just living for themselves, Americans, I don't have time. Get involved with what? Rescue what? No, I mean, we got to change that. It starts with children. We absolutely have to have organizations like the Association for the Recovery of Children. I can't thank you enough, Mr. Boz. It's been just a pleasure. Always provide so much great action. So we'll get the links up so that we can get enrolled. I think you're in Alabama next. Did I see that right? Coming
yeah,
up
that's
next.
correct. In about a week and a half, we have a course in Alabama. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get all
yeah,
the
it's filling up
information
pretty
up.
fast.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll get that up double quick so they can get enrolled. I want to wish you and yours a happy Easter. I want a fantastic weekend of worship. We'll do it again sometime, folks, and do this until next time. Serve God, help others, stay good. Goodbye. God bless everybody.
Thank you, Matthew.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Let me see.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.